One of Vincent van Gogh's most famous paintings is Self-Portrait with Bandaged Ear from 1889. It hangs in an art gallery in London, but it's not his only self-portrait. He painted more than 40 self-portraits, which is a pretty common assignment in art class, that along with a bowl of fruit, students are oftentimes asked to draw a self-portrait. And Rush Ramsey remembers in high school when he was given that assignment, that he went home, set up a mirror on the kitchen table, and with pencil and paper in front of him, he looked in the mirror, and as he started to drag that pencil across the paper, he found himself making his eyes a little bit brighter, his nose a little more defined, his cheekbone more chiseled. The only problem was when he finished and stood back and looked at it, his self-portrait looked like somebody else. That he discovered that when it comes to a self-portrait, only the truth will work. Which means we draw the scars and the asymmetry. We include the freckles and the blemishes. And all of those lines are beautiful. They are the lines from years of experience. They are the scars from what we have survived. And that kind of honest self-portrait acknowledges, ironically, that we need to rely on others to get through all of those things. That when we're able to draw a self-portrait that does not strive for perfection, or we can take off the mask that we wear, we end up discovering the sheer beauty of a shared journey. It's what the Apostle Paul describes. My grace is sufficient. It is power made perfect in weakness. Paul's trying to defend himself against all these critics in Corinth who are saying that he's not a true apostle. So, in a very odd way, he starts to defend himself by speaking in third person. I know this guy who 14 years ago was taken up to heaven. That Paul has seen the heights of heaven. He knows what he is talking about. But he guards himself against drawing this dishonest self-portrait because he also relies on the grace of God. I have this thorn in my flesh, so I will boast more about my weakness, so that the power of Christ will dwell with me. And Jesus has a similar experience when he faces criticism at home, that he's teaching in the synagogue in his hometown. Maybe people who taught him in Sunday school. And they are excited. They have heard about everything that he has done, the healings and teachings elsewhere. And now they can't wait to see what Jesus is going to do for them. But Jesus does not live up to their expectations. Instead, he wants them to see beyond what he can do for them. The wider meaning of what he is saying and doing. So he refers to that old proverb, prophets are not without honor except in their hometown. And this experience of rejection shapes what Jesus teaches his disciples. because he sends them out to teach and to care for others. He says, don't take anything with you, not a bag or bread or money. Just rely on the kindness and hospitality of others. But be warned, there will be those who reject you. And when that happens, simply shake the dust off of your feet and move on to the next place. One reason that we try to paint a self-portrait that stresses perfection is because it is so hard to shake the dust off of our feet after someone sees who we are. That we would rather wear a mask than face such disappointment. Jesus is teaching us reliance, not self-reliance, but relying on the grace of God and on the support of others. Every year when the fair came to Augusta, we would always go and enjoy the rides. We would get on their one roller coaster. We would slide down the super slide on that burlap sap. We would, if we got up enough courage, ride the pirate ship. But we were always warned every time we went to the fair not to buy the fair food or play the vendors' games. The fair food will make you sick, and the vendors' games are a waste of money. And we saw a lot of people walk away from those games empty-handed without a stuffed teddy bear. But there was one game that always caught my eye. There in the middle of the midway, with a guy standing next to what looked like a large scale holding this big mallet. And people would swing the mallet as hard as they could, hit the base of the scale, and watch the puck rise up, hoping to ring the bell. And this man kept yelling, "Step right up, test your strength." Well, don't tell my parents. But I tried it one time. I gave the man $1. And the first thing I noticed when I tried to pick up this mallet was how heavy they made it. It weighed as much as I did. I could barely pick it up, much less swing it over my head. No wonder nobody won a stuffed animal. But the strength that we truly need in this life is not our own. There are times where we will go to pick up the mallet and we realize we cannot carry it by ourselves. That we need the gift of humility, which is different from the experience of humiliation. Humiliation is what I experienced when I tried to swing that mallet. As Kostika Braden writes, humiliation comes to us from outside forces telling us we are not good enough. Humility is an inner strength that comes from the support of others and relying on the grace of God. That as it turns out, humility is a type of knowledge. It is knowing that none of us is meant to do this life alone. Barbara Brown Taylor says that there are three kinds of people. First, there is the person who does not know that they do not know, because they have all the answers. They don't need help from anybody else. But then there are the people who know they do not know, but they think they're supposed to know. That eventually they'll figure it all out. But lastly, there are the people who know they do not know, and they see that as a gift, because it invites us and calls us to lean into the grace of God. And the truth is, all of us will be all of those people at one point or another. There might be a time where we sit down and we draw a self-portrait that stresses perfection, because we don't need the help of anybody else. Or we might sit down and draw a self-portrait which is honest, but we think that eventually we'll iron out all of those wrinkles. But then there are times where we might sit down and draw a self-portrait which is truthful, knowing that we need the help of others. And at the top of the page, we write, a child of God, thankful for the grace of God. We went to an art gallery one time. We've been touring a city, so we had this backpack with everything we might need that day. Snacks and umbrella and, And when we checked in at the front desk, they told us we could not wear the backpack on our back, which sounded kind of odd, and it looked kind of odd too. They wanted us to turn it around and wear it on the front and walk around this art gallery looking at all of this beauty on the wall. And they explained that too often when people wear the backpack on the back, which seems to make sense, that they'll be walking down the hallway of the art gallery next to a painting, and after looking at it for a minute, they'll turn around and the backpack will accidentally knock the art off the wall, destroying its beauty. So we walked around this art gallery with the backpack on the front, which felt really awkward. And it can feel odd to lean into a power made perfect with weakness. But there is beauty in it. It is the beauty of leaning into God's grace and relying on the support of others. It is the strength that we receive and discover when we embrace the shared journey of life. Amen.